So the newest book in a Starless clan came out on Tuesday or something, November 5th, and I was like, oh, what a good opportunity to read the entire arc that I have yet to touch in 72 hours and see what happens. So that's what happened. And I have been reading these nonstop, and now here I am So I really wanted to do a video about it, but I didn't want to do a full review, at least not yet, but I have thoughts. So I thought I'd put together a video of a couple things that I wish would have happened in the arc that I wish they would have done. These are my, man, I wish we would have got these. Sparkpelt and Flamepaw. This is what I thought was gonna happen. So Flamepaw, we have this cat who looks nothing like Firestar, and he's so confused because he's like, I'm nothing like him, I don't look like him, I don't act like him, but I have to live up to his legacy, and everybody keeps bringing it up. So I was like, that makes zero sense. Like, I could understand if he was like looking like him, if he's a carbon copy, but nothing. So I'm like, surely that can't be what's happening. So I thought, I was convinced at this point that Sparkpelt, oh, I really liked what was starting with Sparkpelt. We have this character who loses the love of her life in a really traumatic kind of way and unexpected, and she's dealing with this really raw and distressing emotion of like having to go through thinking that your love of your life was going to be there beside you and you're going to have these two little babies and raise them, and now all of a sudden she's alone and she doesn't have this person that she loves. So she has these babies, which in and of itself is already a very emotional and just, well, not that I know, but like it is a big thing. She has Finch Kit. She's like, okay. But then little Flamepaw pops out, and this man is a carbon copy of Larksong. They make a point of saying that he looks like his father a couple times. And so what I thought, I was like, okay, well, he looks so much like Larksong and has nothing to do with Firestar, but the connecting factor here is Sparkpelt. So I thought what the reveal was going to be. Flamepaw's story revolved so much around identity, and specifically through Firestar's identity, and he was so locked onto that. I thought it would have been so cool if there would have been a reveal that Sparkpelt was like, you know what, I actually don't think you do look like, or maybe she didn't have to like say this outright. Maybe subconsciously I thought, she is so distressed by seeing this constant reminder of Larksong and this really painful thing. It's this really bad emotion of like, I've lost this person, I'm never going to see him again, and now I have to see this little tiny reminder of him every time I turn around, and he's my baby, so I have to take care of this constant reminder that I've lost the love of my life. I thought subconsciously she was like, okay, I'm going to distance this baby as much as I can from the memory of Larksong, and I'm gonna just totally project Firestar on him because she's very proud of him. And that's her grandpa. He's this really strong and vivid thing in her life that she's like, okay, it's perfect. He'll be like Firestar. And she's like not pushing Larksong away, but definitely having this different connection to him. I thought what was going to happen, and I was going to put money on it. I seriously would have put money on it. I thought they were going to pull the rug out from under us, and Larksong was going to come in somehow, or Sparkpelt, I don't know, but Larksong in some capacity was going to be like, hey, you're not Firestar. You're not. And he didn't know it, but he's like, but you're also not me. You are your own person, and you should not have to be the symbol for anybody except for who you are. So the fact that he's being compared subconsciously and like consciously to these two cats, I thought there was going to be some resolution in that. And I thought that Sparkpelt was going to come to the realization of that. I felt it was so surface level that they were like, no, you're Firestar's kin, so we're putting Firestar on you. I was like, it has to be deeper than that. But yeah, nope, you're Firestar's kin. But I think it would have been really cool had it been connected back to his dad and back to Sparkpelt. And I really don't feel like there was a resolution. Sparkpelt was so mad when he said, no, I don't want to be Flameheart, I'm Nightheart. She was furious. And I think it would have been so good had they had some type of closure or some type of moment where Sparkpelt connects. I feel like it just fizzled out. I feel like he came back to ThunderClan and she's like, okay, all's good, we're good, fine, thank you. Just felt very unearned, and I would have really liked to see Larksong be brought up. And maybe that's just me projecting, he's getting projected on everybody. I was sad. I was like, man, I wish that they would have done more with Larksong. So I was sad about that. A lot of this arc, I feel like there was a lot of coming back to the earlier arcs and a lot of echoes of earlier plot lines that they're now coming back to years and years later from a different perspective and an almost flipped perspective. And a big thing I thought was Tiger Claw's takeover of RiverClan. I was so sad because I felt like all the pieces were there for this to happen, and then it just didn't. And it was so unsatisfying, the conclusion with Tigerstar and RiverClan. So spoiler alert, he comes in and he's like, you know, RiverClan RiverClan doesn't have a leader. They need my help. I need to get in there and I need to be the leader. And he freaking strong. He's shouldering people out of the way. He's like, I'm gonna help you, whether you guys like it or not, whether you want it or not. And he like goes in there and he punches people in the head until they are like, okay. But he's like, I will help you, dang it. And he takes over. His whole thing was RiverClan is weak, and if they're weak, we're weak. Couple times before he took over, people were like referring to Tigerstar 1 and his takeover of RiverClan. And you could tell Tigerheart would start bristling and he'd be like, I'm nothing like him. I'm not like him. It's kind of back to this thing of identity. And Flamepaw and Fireheart, it was neat because we were coming back to that whole thing of identity. So when he was doing the takeover, I thought it would have been so much cooler if he would have had this moment of like, Tigerstar 1 once took over RiverClan for the wrong reason, but I'm gonna save RiverClan for the right reason. And I thought it would have been so cool if he kind of got it so in his head and so focused on not being like Tigerstar that he didn't realize he was Tigerstar. Had they like found a quote from Tigerstar 1, you know, when he was being like a turd, I don't even know a quote, but he was like, I'll make the clan stronger and blah, 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 and all the clans will be one. But he was just like manipulating them. I thought it would have been so cool had Tigerheart somehow like echoed that, but actually meant it and had this moment of like, oh my God, like I am being Tigerstar and I thought I was in the right, but in actuality, I'm like doing what he did, even though I have good intentions, like, and just like kind of like history repeating itself, instead of him just slowly like kind of pulling out of RiverClan and being like, okay, whatever, I'll come out. I thought it would have been so much better had he been like, I gotta leave. Like, I am doing something bad here. I do not want to be Tigerstar 1. And then him making that active decision of being like, this is wrong. I'm sorry. And then him refusing to help because he was so afraid of then being more like Tigerstar. Instead, we just have him being like grumbling the whole time and being like, I could have led them, blah, 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 but everybody's mad at me and I don't know why. But man, I thought it would have been so good had we had some type of connection, because it was right there, Aaron's. It was right there. And they just didn't do it. And I'm like, come on, man. And I was so disappointed in that. And I thought they could have had such a cool reveal of just that shocking, like, boom of like, I am him, but like so not intentionally, but then they didn't. And I thought that was very underwhelming. And I was like, man, that sucks. I wish I would have done something with that. And then they just didn't. And I was like, dang it. I do not like how that all shook out. Another thing that I was kind of disappointed about, we had another callback to Arc 1 when we had Nightheart move to ShadowClan because he was so tired and sick and mad at being compared to his kin that he's like, I can't be in ThunderClan anymore. All they see is this person that I'm not. And he goes to ShadowClan. And who do we have in ShadowClan? Somebody who's gone through that exact same situation but flipped, but it's all her clanmates see is a reflection of Tigerstar. And Nightheart, all they see is a reflection of Firestar. And I was like, oh my God, like there's this opportunity for Flameheart to come in and have this moment with Tawnypelt. Because like nobody's really seen him eye to eye. Yes, he had Sunbeam, but I thought it would have been way more powerful had he had the opportunity to sit down with Tawnypelt and her just be real with him. Not sugarcoat it and not be sweetie pie about it and just be like, yeah, they're probably gonna see you like that. Like that is something that happened. And that sucks. And, you know, you just have to be who you are and not give a crap about what they have to say. And just like some type of like understanding and melding of these two characters who are like sharing this weird kind of tie together but have nothing really in common but everything in common. And just any type of, I think at one point Nightheart's like, oh yeah, I have Kin in here, I can go talk to Tawnypelt. But I'm pretty sure it was like off screen and they just like kind of did their own thing. But man, I was like, that would be such a cool interaction, those two together and just talking and just anything. And they just didn't. Again, Aaron, I'm begging you, it's right there at the tip of your fingers, just do it. And then they just didn't. And I'm like, damn it. So that was wildly disappointing. So I was kind of sad at that. I was like, damn it, they really could have done something cool there. Another thing I was kind of sad, Sunbeam. When I read the rest of the arc, I'm like, okay, this wouldn't have worked. But when it did happen, I thought that this would have been cool. But so Sunbeam is so used to being a people pleaser. Like, you know, she's dealing with her mom and she loves her mom, but she knows that she's like super difficult. So she's kind of changed herself to make it easier to deal with this really large personality. And you see that reflected in a lot of her relationships with Blazefire. She's got good chemistry with him, but when he's like, you know, I don't see us together, she takes it very well, which is a good thing. And she's like, okay, but she's dealing with these emotions and she doesn't really talk about them because she doesn't want to upset him. Even after, you know, she's constantly worried about him and she's putting aside her emotions to make him comfortable. Same thing with Lightleap. Lightleap is the worst and I love her for it. Because I don't like her so much, it makes me love her even more. She's such a brat. But Sunbeam is constantly worried about her friend. So they have their spat where Sunbeam does what she believes is right, and then they're fighting. And Sunbeam is dealing with this emotion where she's frustrated with Lightleap and she's mad, and Lightleap's mad at her, but Sunbeam's also like, well, maybe I'm in the wrong. Maybe I did something wrong, when she didn't. She was just doing what she thought was right, but because her friend is upset with her, she has this really negative feeling of like, maybe I should just apologize, like maybe I am in the wrong, and she's not sticking up for herself, and she doesn't like this feeling that somebody's mad at her, so she just wants to fix it no matter the cost. When Lightleap's upset, she's like, am I a bad friend for not helping her feel better? Even though Sunbeam has these valid emotions of like, I'm mad at my friend, I don't want to talk to her, she's like, oh, but I'm being a bad friend because she needs me more than I should be upset with her. And it's like, no, you have your emotions, you're allowed to feel these ways, you shouldn't have to feel guilty about being upset with somebody and push your feelings aside to just make somebody else feel better when they're having a hard time. To me, it's just like Sunbeam felt like she was constantly putting other people first and just pushing her stuff aside to just make people feel better. And I was so, I know that there are people who really like Sunbeam and Nightheart, and that's good. I'm sorry. I do not like Nightheart and Sunbeam. I know a lot of people do, but I truly and honestly think that is the worst possible outcome for her. And I was disappointed on how that came out, because Nightheart to me felt like the exact thing that Sunbeam was dealing with, of she's a people pleaser, she's not going to shake the boat, she's not going to say what she really feels because she wants to make people comfortable. And Nightheart is exactly that. She's there for him, and she's the first person who will sit and listen and be like, I hear you. And Nightheart is instantly like, oh my god, I love her. She's the love of my life. She makes me feel not negative. And the way she makes me feel makes me love her. Not her personality, not this is what I love about her, not X, Y, and Z. It's how she can make me feel. It's how she can make my life better, not just me loving her. It felt very selfish. And that's maybe a bad take. I don't know. So Nightheart coming in to ShadowClan and Sunbeam like, okay, I don't really actually know how I feel about this guy, but he loves me, so I could probably learn to love him. I'm like, girl, no. I'm like, please, no, dude, that is the opposite. That is the exact opposite thing of what you should be doing right now. Care for yourself, man. And so I was like, okay, maybe this is going somewhere. Maybe this is like leading up to something bigger. And so her like guiding Nightheart, and Nightheart, I want to with Nightheart, because I was like so frustrated with him, because constantly he was like, your mother's quite a wild card. Oh, what are we going to do with her? And Sunbeam many times was like, no, like you are making light of this, and this is like a really important thing to me, and I am stressed out because she is making me stressed out. That's my mom. I have to deal with this. It is stressful for me. And Nightheart's like, oh, Berryheart's such a little mother-in-law's, am I right? It's like him just actively avoiding how she's feeling, and then her being like, okay, but I have to make him feel better. Oh, I was steamed. I was like, girl. And then, oh my god, I had to take a moment where I closed the book, and I'm like, I need to contact StarClan to have a moment of peace, because I'm very upset. Because when Nightheart, spoiler alert, goes through his trials, he does the third one and he fails it on purpose, and he goes, you know what, Sunbeam, you're important to me, but I'm gonna go. It just felt like such a means to an end. Nightheart was like, I love you, Sunbeam, but And thank you, Sunbeam, for helping me grow butt. And it's like, no. And don't get me wrong, if that's where he needed to be, that's fine. But it felt like he used her. And it was I need to get into ShadowClan, but I need to have a reason. I need to be in love with Sunbeam. And it just felt so forced. And I get it. They went on the adventure and they had a date and stole chicken and went on a roller coaster. All that was fine and dandy. But it felt so hollow. And I thought for sure, there has to be something coming with this. There has to be something else. So he goes back to ThunderClan and Sunbeam is devastated. And she's like, it's happened again. Again, I am just somebody else's way to feel better. I am nothing more than what I can do for somebody else. And then at the end of the book, she appears in ThunderClan. I'm like, whoa, interesting. So I read through the books back to back, no pause. So I had 20 minutes to think this and then my hopes got dashed. But I was like, wouldn't it be so sick if she finally was like, no, I'm going to do what I want, and I want to do something specific. So I was like, wouldn't it be cool if we come into this next book and we get 0 point of view from Sunbeam? 0. It flips from Frostpaw to Nightheart. Nothing from Sunbeam. But at the beginning of the book, she's very sweet, and she's like, oh, I love you. And Nightheart's like, oh my God, I'm so glad you came here because I wanted my cake and eat it too. And this is how I do that. And blah, blah, blah. And Sunbeam's like, yeah, I love you so much. But again, we get no inner look at how she's feeling. And then at the very end, I thought, wouldn't it be so cool if we finally get her point of view and And she's like, no, I actually don't love you. I'm here to prove that I'm so much more than what you. I was like, oh, like, I don't know. But I wanted her to finally like do something for her. And I'm like, if that means that she needs to kick Nightheart's pants, fine. And then I was like, oh, it'd be so cool if she had this like turn of, I know I said I loved you, but I don't. And just like having this like really real and raw feeling of her explaining everything and us seeing how she really feels of like, I can't believe he's done this to me. But no, instantly we get a point of view and she's like, oh, I love you, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, girl, I'm like, no, please, I beg of you, don't. And her point of view is just like lovey-dovey. And I'm like, come on, like, don't. You are worth so much more than that. Then I shipped Sunbeam and Bayshine real, and I know that's kind of like they didn't really interact, but every time they did, it felt so genuine. Sunbeam came up to Bayshine and she's like, hey, like my family's in trouble. I need you to help me cover for it. And he didn't say, well, what's in it for me? He was just like, yeah, you're my friend. Let's do it. Like, let's help you. Without argument, nothing. He went in and he helped her and he took punishment and he was just so selfless. It just felt so much more just, he appreciated her. He's like, yeah, I'll do this for you because you're important to me. Whereas Nightheart, it did not feel like that whatsoever. So I'm like, she should just be with somebody who just likes her, for just not what she can do for them. And I get that they say that each other's cute. I don't know. And maybe that's a bad take. It probably is a bad take, but I just didn't like them together. I wish that Sunbeam would have been able to have a different moment of anything. I didn't like the fact that Sunbeam felt like a stepping stool for Nightheart's character development. This guy using Sunbeam to find himself. I'm not a fan of those two together. I'm sorry if you guys do. This is kind of where we're going to get into a spoiler for the 6th book. If you haven't read the 6th book, stop now, because I'm about to go into something that is spoiler heavy. So this is your warning now. Back out now if you are worrying about spoilers, because this is where we spoil. So Splashtail. I thought he was fumbled hard. Oh my god, did they fumble him. He was just this like really just sturdy and supportive guy. He's just there and he was kind of like a nobody in the background of just like the support. And Frostpaw was just like appreciating him. And then oh my, whatever book it was that we had the mwahaha I'm evil reveal where I think it was Sunbeam and Nightheart, they were like listening in, eavesdropping, and Splashtail did something to the effect of like, if we can't find a leader, we'll help them out, and like swings his claws together all evil, mwahaha, pets it like a cat, petting Podcast's head, being like, mwahaha. I just was like, oh, that is such wasted opportunity. If they would have held on to it, had they had any subtlety at all, man, it would have been such a better payoff. But instead, we now have this flag in the back of our heads every single time he's talking to Frostpaw of like, oh, this guy's evil. Oh, this guy has bad intentions. Oh, he's trying to convince her to be a medicine cat because he has these bad intentions. What if we didn't know? What if we just genuinely thought he was this good guy? And when Frostpaw was like, hey, I'm going to be a warrior, and he was like, are you sure you want to do that? Like, is that the path that you want to be on? Like, you work so hard. But us knowing he's evil at this point, we're like, oh my god, he's a jerk. He's trying to convince her. But wouldn't it have been way better if we had zero idea and he's like, well, what if he is right? Like, I just think it would have had such a better and more powerful punch to it had he not been so mwahaha. He could have been such a better villain. He was so bad. I'm sorry. When it came to the last book, this is big spoilers here, he starts talking to Curlfeather and he has this vision where she's like haunting him in the background. I'm like, that is sick. I'm like, that is such a cool thing. And like, we know he's evil at this point, but I feel like, what if this is where we found out that he was evil? And I know that a lot of plot point hinges on it before that, but it's a slow realization instead of him just being like, haha, I want power. Like, come on, that is so easy. And a slow reveal of like, oh my god, would have been so good. And the same thing with Curlfeather constantly being in his ear. And it's been a long time since I've read Macbeth, but the whole Lady Macbeth, when she's got the blood on her hands, she's like, has this guilt and she's constantly washing her hands, trying to get this blood off her hands, and she's feeling so guilty. Splashtail kind of has this where he's feeling this guilt about killing a Curlfeather, and I'm like, wouldn't have that been so much better had that been what was driving him more and more unhinged and more mad, him dealing with this guilt and like him not being able to handle the things that he's done. Like, they kind of have this moment where they're like toying with the idea that he's seeing things and he's talking to Curlfeather on the side, but everybody's like, what is happening? Like he's not okay. A slow descent into like his guilt and stuff like that, and Curlfeather never was there. Curlfeather was very clearly there, but I think it would have been so sick had he just had subtle visions of her and little hints instead of this in your just clomping through the cornfield of this is what's happening. Subtlety with Splashtail, I feel like would have gone such a long way. And tell me, what was his motivation? He wanted to be the leader. Cool. He wanted cool. Like there was just zero anything. And he's like, yeah, I just want power. And I don't know what his motivation could have been. I have not a clue. Any type of motivation, a drop of anything beyond I'm evil, I want power, I want to be leader. Splashtail, I feel like they fumbled him hard. I wish they would have done something else with Splashtail. Literally anything else. I thought that he was just goofiest villain possible. And I just did not feel like he was a threat at all. At all. And yeah, so I don't really know what else to talk about. Those are just the things that I wish would have happened. This is not really a review, it's just me complaining. That's just what I would have changed. Maybe I'll have more to say on the arcs, but that's just me yapping. Mwah.